Hello, friends. It's good to be with you as always. I hope this finds you well. We are recording this on Monday, July 13th, and the first thing I want to say is a special shout out to Pastor Valerie Strand Patterson. Today is actually the 34th anniversary of her ordination. And so I want to congratulate Valerie, and I want to thank her for her many years of faithful ministry and the privilege that it has been for me to spend many of my years in ministry alongside of her. So again, congratulations, Valerie, on that really important milestone. Well done, good and faithful servant. I'm always thinking about topics for these podcasts, and in the last week, two things happened that prompted me just to offer a few modest reflections this morning. One was I had a conversation with someone over breakfast, and the other was actually as I was driving into church today, I stopped at one of our normal coffee shops to grab a coffee. And in both instances, in the breakfast meeting, the person knew me. In the coffee drive-through, the person turns out also knew me from a prior church I had served, and she engaged me in conversation. In both of those instances, the individuals I was chatting with, even if only briefly, seemed to have deep questions about Christianity. And in the case of the person at the coffee shop this morning, my intuition, and again, it was very brief, but my intuition was that she had actually left the church because of some of those questions. And one of my passions, of course, as a pastor is to try to articulate our faith clearly and in a way that makes sense. And I do believe, and we've talked about this in ways over past episodes, that our culture works against us on this front. That involves things like the connection between faith and science, or related to that, the connection between faith and the story of creation. It involves things like how does faith impact our understanding of our body, and it also includes just a general cultural sense, I would argue, that faith is something that is backwards. It's something that's from the past. It doesn't understand life as we understand it in 2020, and therefore it's a relic, something that can be pushed aside. I want to suggest otherwise today. I want to suggest that Christianity, which has been sustained and thrived for 2,000 years, has put up with all kinds of critiques and has met those critiques. And I actually think a lot of the reason that people fall away from the faith as it relates to their supposed intellectual difficulties with the faith is that they don't really understand what Christianity is. And that's a problem for us. So I want to address that in more detail in future episodes, but today, I want to just lift up a couple of quotes. One is from someone I can't actually remember who said this, but it's a good quip, which is that a church door should not be so low that a person has to remove their head to enter into the building. I love that one, and I think it's true. I think as Christians, God invites us to use our rational intellects, to use the brains that God has given us. The other couple of quick quotes I want to lift up come from a woman. I have mentioned her before. Her name is Dorothy Sayers. I have here a couple of her well-known books. This is The Man Born to be King. This is a book that C.S. Lewis read every Lent. It's a 12-part play series that was done for the BBC in the middle of the 20th century. The other famous book by her is The Mind of the Maker. The quotes I'm going to lift up are actually, I can't show you the cover of the quotes because I'm reading them in my Kindle, which makes it difficult to show a cover. But she, in a collection of her letters, she's responding to these same kinds of issues, right? With people who have questions about Christianity. And she has a number of very wise things she says about it, but I want to lift up just two of them. The first is a slightly longer one, which says this. Again, this is Dorothy Sayers. She says, I haven't got a pastoral mind. She was a writer, not a pastor. I haven't got a pastoral mind or a passion to convert people, but she was a very smart person. And she says, but I hate having my intellect outraged by imbecile ignorance and by the monstrous distortions of fact, which the average person accepts as being Christianity, and then in parentheses, and from which he or she most naturally revolt. In other words, I, Dorothy Sayers, a faithful Christian, believe I have an understanding of what we actually teach as Christians, and when I hear other people tell me what Christianity supposedly teaches, it makes me kind of crazy, and it also makes me understand why people would want to have nothing to do with it, right? The other thing she says is this: it does seem just as well if you're going to disbelieve a thing to find out exactly what you are disbelieving. And so my invitation to you this morning is, if you have questions about what Christianity teaches, if you have a sense that, boy, this doesn't seem quite right, or I'm finding it hard to believe a certain thing, check it out and discover if what you are disbelieving is actually what Christianity teaches, or if it's a cultural accretion of Christianity. I would also encourage you, as always, if you have questions about our faith, to reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you by email or by phone or in person, or to address an issue in a future episode of this podcast. I want to remind you that we believe in Christianity not only because it is a beautiful story, but because it is ultimately true. Thanks as always for listening. Stay in touch, be well, and God bless.